So are you an introverted creative or are you an extroverted? Is that a word? Or are you an extroverted creative? I'm the first one, but I'm trying to be a little bit more of the second one. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Other Record Labels, where we talk about being a record label, starting a record label, trying to grow a record label. I want to talk about collaborating because it's something that I'm sort of uncomfortable with, but I'm trying to become a little bit more comfortable with. And I want to unpack some of the reasons why I think that as creatives, whether you're an independent artist, you're a producer, you're a mix engineer, you're a manager, or you're an independent record label, that I think you should try to collaborate more. And trust me, it's hard for me. I'm doing this. By the way, a huge shout out to our friends Infinite Catalog for sponsoring today's episode, but more on them in just a little bit. I'm not big on New Year's resolutions. I feel like once you make them, you're like guaranteed not to keep them. But some things, I do like the new year for reasons that like it is a great time to kind of start a new habit or try something new. I don't like making it official. Usually what ends up happening, I know this is kind of weird and intangible, but there's usually like a word of the year that just kind of like, I just think about, and I don't know where it comes from, but it often happens. And for some weird reason, the word of this year for me was collaborations, like just the idea of trying to get outside of my comfort zone a little bit. When an artist will reach me or reach out to me, or a producer will reach out to me and say, hey, let's work together, I often am like, I can't, I'm too busy. I'm too selfish working on my own stuff. So I want to change that a little bit. And I think I'm doing it. We'll unpack that in a second. But I feel like I want to be a little bit more collaborative, and I'm not sure why, but I think there are some benefits to it. And in fact, I've found 10 benefits to it, and we're going to unpack those. The biggest thing is you got to just make time for it, because we're always able to kind of like expand what we're working on or contract what we're working on depending on how much time we're given. So we know we can make time to collaborate, but we just decide not to. We can make time for anything that's important for us. And I'm also looking for unique ways to collaborate. So I'm collaborating with other companies here on other record labels. I'm collaborating with other producers as an artist myself. I'm collaborating with other record labels to release my own music and the stuff that I release on my label. So there's lots of different kind of unique collaborations, maybe visual artists, that kind of stuff. Working with other people. We've also just started a new program called Labelmates. You can find out more about that at otherrecordlabels.com/labelmates. But there's a group of 8 of us right now who are meeting for 6 weeks every Tuesday afternoon for 6 weeks. And we're just kind of going through the concept of starting a record label and working with each other. So you should join us on our next time we do that sometime. The first reason why I think it's important to collaborate more is that it stretches you as an artist. You get exposed to other people's strategies and other people's way of making art. I never loved co-writing, like songwriting with other people, because I'm like, well, this is the way I come up with melodies and it's kind of weird and gross and it's just my own system. I don't want to show it to anybody and I don't want to know your way of doing it. But that could be a problem because we could learn new things that could break us out of that kind of boring routine. And so there is a huge benefit to just stretching you as an artist, to doing something that's kind of uncomfortable, which is the whole point, to get you out of your comfort zone. Because when you get in a rut as a creative, whether you're a business person, like an entrepreneur, and you're in this rut, you're a record label owner, you're a mixer that mixes things the same way, working with someone else or just observing their process can help stretch you a little bit. And I think that's really good. Number 2, and this has to do with record labels, but also can work for any business of any type. But when businesses work together as opposed to being competitive, it really redefines the definition of a business. It redefines the definition of record labels. Record labels are often silos. They were separate from each other in competition with each other. And so when record labels work together, and we've talked about this before on the show, where record labels will do a co-release. Well, one label will release it in Europe while the other label will release it in America. Or one label will do all of the physical and the other label will do all of the digital. This is completely novel. It's like something really new and exciting. And I think that it's a good way to redefine how record labels work. There's no rules. And that leads me to number 3, which is sharing responsibilities. Or perhaps we'll say sharing the load. Like I mentioned, if you're a record label and you're co-releasing an album, then one record label can take on a certain amount of the responsibilities and another record label can take on another pack of the responsibilities. Now, you might split the revenue, but that's okay. You might make double the revenue because you have 2 record labels who are working towards the same goal. If you're an artist and you're working on an album, then you have one artist who's taking care of some of the recording and mixing and another artist who's doing more more of the instrumentation, or you're taking care of the instrumentation that you're really good at, and they're taking care of the instrumentation that they're really talented at. Number 4, and this is one of my favorite things, is that 1 + 1 can equal 5 or 10 or a million or 1 or 0 or -100. The point is that this unibrain comes together that ends up being bigger than just one brain. When one creative is working on their own, they output whatever they output. But when two creatives come together, we get something that could never have been formed by that individual. And it goes back to the point I just mentioned. When you're sharing the load, you actually get further together than you would on your own. And this leads me to number 5, and that is very similar to 1 + 1 = 5, and that is the X factor. What can come from a collaboration? And this is one of the things that gets me so excited. So I'm working with an artist right now, and we're working on a record. I'm also working with another singer, and we're working on a single. And I'm talking with a record label about releasing an album of mine in the future. The funny thing is that some weird things are coming out of this, whether it's like friendships, or it's business opportunities, or this is just a stepping stone to a bigger project we're going to work on together. That X factor is the thing that excites me the most about collaborating with people, and why I think you should collaborate with more people, because you might be thinking we're just working on a single. What can come of this? But incredible things can come of it. You could find your soulmate. You could get a job. You could form a band and make an incredible album from just working on one single a few months earlier. Who knows? That's what I love about it. It's so mysterious that so many cool things can come from collaborating. For example, when I started this podcast and this YouTube channel, I just wanted to learn more about running my own record label. And I ended up meeting so many other cool record labels and so many cool companies that help record labels, like my friends at Infinite Catalog, who just so happen to be the sponsor of today's episode. How weird is that? What a great segue, Scott. Infinite Catalog is the best solution for record labels to manage their royalties. So you get all of this money that comes in, whether it's from DistroKid or it's from Symphonic or whoever your digital distributor is, and then money from Bandcamp and live shows and merch sales on Shopify. All of this money comes in, and you've got to sort it. You've got to put it through your spreadsheets or whatever. Infinite Catalog takes care of all that, and it does it in a really beautiful way. Then it presents all of that data in a nice, cohesive way to you and your artists, and it makes sure that your artists get paid on time. It's an awesome solution. We're friends with them. So make sure you go to infinitecatalog.com to check them out to help you manage your record label royalties. Number 6 is there's strength in numbers. This is why you need to collaborate. There's this collective momentum that comes with collaborating. More people will pay attention. More people will listen. Like I mentioned, 1 + 1 = 5. That happens across the board when it comes to promoting, when it comes to creating. There is strength and power in doing things together. Which leads me to number 7, and that's expanding your reach. Every single independent artist or every single record label has this small little tribe, this small little group of people that support them and follow them. Sometimes it's 1,000 people, sometimes it's 10,000 people, maybe it's 100,000 people, maybe it's just 100 people. But the more people you work with, the more you get access to those other tribes. And so if you are a record label and you put a compilation album out, and let's say you feature 10 artists, well, maybe you as a record label only have 100 fans. No big deal. And let's say you work with 10 new artists, and those 10 artists also have 100 fans. That's not a lot, but now you've just exposed yourself to 1,000 new fans by releasing a compilation that features those 10 bands. Because those 10 bands are going to then share this compilation. They're going to tell people about your record label. So you've now gone from 100 fans exposure to 1,100 fans exposure. And this number multiplies exponentially as you share about this on all your social media platforms, as the bands and the people you work with share about across all of their social media platforms. This can literally lead to millions of impressions when you work together. It's cool. Number 8 is sharing resources. This was something that was really special to me because when I first got started, I had all of this home studio equipment that I had bought. And I would record my own albums with it, but I would only do that every 2 or 3 years. And so it would just sit unused in my basement, and I would just tinker away with nothing to work on. And so when I brought over some of my friends, we started to make records together. And then we started a record label together. And it was awesome because then my studio got used more often. In fact, almost every night of the week was filled up with people working on records. And then we rented a PA system for me to use at gigs. And then we bought that PA system so that everybody on the record label could use that mic and speakers and amp and stuff to go for their own gigs to help them save money. So there was all these incredible opportunities where we could share musicians and share instruments and share tools and equipment. And it was an awesome way to share resources. So that's one of the great ways that you can benefit from working with other people. Number 9, not just sharing resources, but sharing knowledge. I've told this story before, but back in 2005, I was a lonely independent artist and I wanted to release a CD. And so I did all this research about getting my music on CD and how many CDs I had to make and how you could make those nice cardboard digipacks. And back then, it was really hard to find this information. So I had to make some phone calls. Do you remember those? I had to do a ton of research, and I finally found out how to make CDs, and I made 500 CDs, which I should not have done. I shouldn't have even made 50 at the time. But anyway, I made a ton of mistakes. I spent a bunch of money, and I did a lot of research. And about a year later, I was helping a friend release their own record, and they said, "Scott, do you know how to release CDs?" And I said, "I do know how to release CDs." And so I easily walked them through that whole process. And so when you work with someone who's done something before you, whether that's uploaded their music to Spotify or that's gotten on an official Spotify playlist, you get exposed to some of their techniques and some of the things that they already know. And vice versa, when they work with you, you have experience in certain areas that you can teach them. Finally, if you don't like to come out of your comfort zone, keep in mind that collaborating with people is an act of charity. It's a way to pay it forward. You see, sometimes there's this if you think of a compass, it's like east to west collaborating, where you're collaborating with your peers. You both have equal reach. You both have an equal size audience. You're kind of at the same stage of your career, and you're just working together. That's probably the most common way that people work together. But then there is the north, right? There's the north, where you work with artists who are more established than you, or you work with bigger record labels or bigger producers, bigger distributors, and they're helping you grow. And then there's the south. There's the time where you're working with artists that are maybe not as advanced as you, or record labels who are smaller than you, have a smaller reach, less experience, but you're doing it to help them. And you are really helping them in the same way that labels who have worked with you are helping you. So if you look at this compass, there are so many ways that we can work together. East to west, lateral. You can help smaller labels and smaller artists, and bigger labels and bigger artists can help you. That's beautiful, and it's a great way to pay it forward. Listen, I'm preaching to the choir here. I need to work with more people. I need to say yes more often. That's what I'm trying to do this year. And I hope you found this video encouraging. You can go to otherrecordlabels.com/collaborating. That's otherrecordlabels.com/collaborating to get the notes from today's episode and to learn more about what it means to work with other creatives. And another shout out to our friends at Infinite Catalog for sponsoring today's episode. Go check them out if you need a solution for managing your record label royalties. Thanks for watching.